Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We will go ahead and get started in just a minute and just allow a few more minutes for people to hop on, and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to wait about one more minute before we get started, just to allow some more time for people to hop on. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started just because we don't have too much time. We have a pretty packed webinar today. So thank you everyone for joining us today for our final session of the Greenbelt Home Series. My name is Ashley Marinko and I'm the Program Associate at Illinois Green Alliance. Today, we have a very special presentation of 3 homeowners who have taken on green projects in their home. I'm really excited to hear more from them and hear from these homeowners and this new track of homes that we added to the home tour this year. But before we get into that, I want to cover some logistics about the webinar and Illinois Green Alliance. So you all have been muted upon entry. And so if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A so we can get those answered during the last about 15 minutes or so. And be sure to ask any questions you guys have. Even if we don't have time to get to them, we can always have our speakers send out some responses to your questions. This webinar is being recorded and it will be sent in a follow-up email within the week to everybody who registered. So keep an eye out for that, as well as some resources in the follow-up email. So first, I want to introduce Illinois Green Alliance, which is a membership-driven nonprofit organization that advances green buildings and sustainable communities for all. Our recently launched 5-year strategic plan pushes the green building industry to meet or get on the path to net zero. And we achieve this through our educational events, engaging communities and partnering with organizations across Illinois, advocating for new policies and legislation. And members can also view our recorded webinars on our on-demand webinar library on our website for free. So you can see all of our webinars that we've done all on the website. It's a really great resource. And you also can check out Illinois Green Alliance's event calendar online to see our upcoming events and webinars. A little bit about the Greenbelt Home Tour. As part of our work to make net zero buildings feasible, this also includes bringing these practices to residential homes. The Greenbelt Home Tour began in 2013 by a group of passionate volunteers passionate about green homes and increasing demand for high performance homes in Illinois. And some of those volunteers are actually on the webinar today talking about their home, which is really cool. Through weekend tours, Q&As with homeowners and builders, and online resources, the Greenbelt Home Tour strives to make it accessible to see the benefits of a green home. This year and last year, the Greenbelt Home Tour switched to being virtual, to a virtual format to keep our community safe. If you missed any of the webinars this year or any of the webinars last year, all of the recordings can be found on the Greenbelt Home Tour website. So that's a perk of going virtual, is that you can watch all of the previous webinars. I would like to thank our 2021 Greenbelt Home Tour sponsors for their support on the tour. Without them, we wouldn't be able to put this on. Our sponsor, Chicago Association of Realtors, ComEd and their energy efficiency program, Mitsubishi Electric, and Peoples Gas and North Shore Gas. So thank you so much for your support. I'd also like to thank our 2021 Greenbelt Home Tour partners who helped us market the event and get the word out to a wide range of audiences. And lastly, this webinar is approved for 1.5 AIA LUs. So if you need a credit for your AIA credential, a Google form will be sent in the follow-up email. Please fill out this form so that we could submit your AIA credit on your behalf. So keep an eye out in the follow-up email for that form to receive credit. With that being said, I would like to turn it over to Amy at North Shore Gas and Peoples Gas for a word from our sponsors. Thank you so much, Amy, for your support.
Thank you so much, Ashley. We're so proud and happy to be a sponsor of the Greenbelt Home Tour. And I'm just going to share a little bit of information about our residential energy efficiency offering. So next slide, please. So our Home Energy Jumpstart, or our residential energy efficiency offering, is available to homeowners and renters, renters with their landlord's permission. And those homeowners and renters must live in a single family home, so a house, a condo, a townhome, or a 2- and 3-flat building. Any of those building types do qualify automatically for our Home Energy Jumpstart. Our free offerings include a personalized virtual or in-home assessment and installation of energy saving products. Those free products may include Energy Star certified LED light bulbs available in many shapes and sizes, Honeywell programmable thermostats. These provide savings by automatically adjusting the temperature in the home. Pipe insulation helps prevent heat loss as water travels to the different areas of the home where it's being used. WaterSense certified shower heads, which use about half the water of a standard shower head. They're available in standard and handheld. And then our WaterSense certified faucet aerators are also available. They reduce sink water flow by about 30% without sacrificing performance. Next slide, please. So this year we've actually introduced a virtual assessment. So you can either take advantage of our in-home assessment, which has an in-person assessment with your energy advisor inside your home. Or our virtual assessment, which would be an interactive video walkthrough with the energy advisor using a video sharing platform. Either way, you're provided with personalized saving tips, and you can self-schedule your appointment online. The free energy saving products are included in both. In the in-home assessment, they're brought to the home by the energy advisor and installed by the energy advisor. For the virtual assessment, they'll be delivered touchlessly to your home after your virtual session, and then it's up to the homeowner to install the products. But you can also receive exclusive discounts on other energy saving products and a personalized assessment report at the conclusion of your assessment in both options. Next slide, please. So our home assessment report gives you an itemized list of products that you qualify for and or are installed during your assessment. It also provides an estimated annual savings in gas, electricity, water, and money, and provides recommendations for larger upgrade projects and rebate opportunities. We also have a referral program available, and each referral who participates in the program can earn you an entry into a monthly drawing for a $25, $50, or $100 gift card. So the way the process works is once your assessment has been completed, you receive a promo code. You share that promo code with friends, family, and neighbors. And once they've completed their assessment and scheduled using your promo code, you are entered into the drawing for each customer who completes an assessment. So it gives you potentially a pretty good chance of winning. So that's just our way of saying thank you for sharing this program with your friends and family. Next slide, please. And then we also have our home energy rebate program. This is mentioned in your home assessment report. Some of these options may be mentioned as they apply to your home. So you can earn cash back on a variety of energy saving improvements in the home. Those range from HVAC, water heating, and weatherization. So we have qualifying measures that range from boiler and integrated domestic hot water 2-in-1 units, hot water boiler, high efficiency furnace, steam boiler, tankless and indirect hot water heaters, programmable thermostats, and smart thermostats. And then for weatherization projects, we have qualifying measures that range from air sealing, which can be done standalone, attic insulation, which requires air sealing to be done as well. And the existing insulation must be R14 or below. Wall and foundation insulation, which also requires air sealing to be done at the same time or to have been done, and duct sealing, which can be done standalone as well. And those rebate amounts do vary. But those recommendations will be made to you in your home energy assessment report for anything that may help make your home more comfortable and energy efficient in the long run. Next slide, please. And I encourage you to schedule your appointment online at peoplesgasdelivery.com/jumpstart or northshoregasdelivery.com/jumpstart, depending on if you're a customer of Peoples Gas or North Shore Gas. Or you can call us at 855-849-8928. Again, that's 855-849-8928. And my name is Amy Bobel. I'm the outreach lead for the residential energy efficiency offering. And you can also feel free to reach out to me at abobel, BOBEL, at franklinenergy.com. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions or address any other opportunities. Thank you so much for having me today, and excited to get going with the home tour.
Thank you so much, Amy. And like I said, we appreciate your support on the home tour. Next, I would like to introduce our longtime volunteer, board member, and just great supporter of Illinois Green Alliance, Mark Willey, who will also be our moderator today for the program, as well as also invite all of our homeowners to hop on real quick for some introductions. So Mark, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Amy. So today we're joined by three wonderful folks, and if you can each take about 60 seconds and introduce yourself, starting with Craig, followed by Patty, and on to Jason. Thank you and welcome, everyone.
Well, my name's Craig Schneider, and I just want to share that is the most formal I have ever heard Mark Willey sound in any of the times that I've heard him. So apparently that was important enough to use some of my 60 seconds, so I'll go quickly. My name is Craig Schneider. I'm a longtime advocate of green building, sustainable construction, energy efficiency, you name it. I've had my fingers in it professionally in terms of this field. I have been involved with USGBC on a national, state, and local level, and have designed and built some of the first LEED certified homes in a number of suburban Chicago communities. So I'm looking forward to talking today about something probably a little bit different than what I've done before, but just as exciting. So thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Patty Lloyd, Director of Sustainability at Leopardo Companies. I'm a longtime volunteer of Illinois Green. I think I started volunteering with them in 2007 and have never stopped. So that's really fun. Obviously, I also work in green building, and I try to practice what I preach by bringing it home. So looking forward to sharing with you guys. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Lafleur. Been involved with IGA for about the same amount of time. Helped lead the Residential Green Building Committee years ago with Lorraine Blizzard, who, and that's where this home tour actually came from, was out of that group. So it's great to see a lot of these people still involved. I currently work at a place called GTI, formerly known as the Gas Technology Institute, doing research and development on next generation technologies. And excited to share a little bit about the home improvements that I've done on my own place today.
Thank you so much, Jason and Patty. And now we'll be proceeding with Craig's presentation.
All right, I see slides. So that is a good place to start. As I mentioned, my name's Craig Schneider, and I'm going to take you on a little journey about our Schneider residence in suburban Batavia. I'm going to talk a lot about some of the simple things that we've done on the house, some of the more normal items that you can do to pretty simply improve the efficiency. But what I am really excited about is something that I've devoted a lot of time in the last couple of years to, and that's a prefabricated, customized screw-on insulation panel that I've designed and patented. Just today, actually, I got final documentation for my preliminary patent app. So very excited. But I want to talk more about this in terms of what we can do thinking forward to help improve housing infrastructure, knowing that every home from here on out can be built sustainably or net zero. But quite frankly, what we need to do is we need to look at our existing housing stock if we are really going to make a run at limiting our greenhouse gas output, our emissions in the future, especially to meet some federal mandates and requests that have been put out there. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so as I said, these are some of those basic things that I want to talk about first. It's really going to be kind of quick hits here. We moved in 07, and right away, my wife and I, at that time we did not have children, we decided that we didn't think that a full-on deep energy retrofit or any sort of, well, we're moving ahead a little bit, let's go back. We didn't think that any sort of aggressive remodeling would be our approach. We really did think that what we were going to do, if we were going to try to be efficient, was just to hit a lot of incremental improvements. So some of the basic, simple things. When it was time to swap out our mechanicals, our furnace and air conditioner, we went with just basic but efficient options. 95% efficient furnaces, Hpwh, 16 SEER air conditioners, kind of the simple things that aren't going to necessarily break the bank, but were the best that we could afford. We wanted to think not in terms of consumables or in disposable, but to try to be as efficient as we could for as long as we could. So upgrading water heaters to have a power vented option, attic and roof ventilation to make sure that we were looking at this from a holistic building science point of view. A lot of those other kind of normal things that was discussed and conducted a lot of typical regular construction performance tests. I would absolutely advise anyone to do that and have an energy audit performed at their home and kind of outline that simple roadmap for the low-hanging fruit that you can do to improve your own house. So we currently have a list of what we have done, how we've accomplished or how we figured out what needed to be done, and then kind of our potential improvements for the future. And some of those are the normal ones, the things that make sense. PV is being probably the leader there, but then there's some other things that aren't regularly talked about, and that's improving the envelope or the exterior insulation on your home. And that kind of moves us into our next slide. So I want to talk about something that I think is important, and it's how you're going to evaluate the performance on your house. For us, we spent a number of years in our home before kids came around, and then we've obviously spent a number of years since we had our first child with children around. And so that really brings to front of mind the idea of really the idea of how you're going to look at your consumption from occupants and then your consumption from components. And so the way to try to get to a common denominator there is what we'd like to do is really look at the components and not factor in, lights or appliance or appliances, excuse me, things like that. How much energy it's going to take to heat, cool, and provide hot water to a residence, as well as a little bit about ventilation, since that can be an active energy sort usage too. So when we bought the home, it was a little bit over $1,000 to heat and cool. And then with some of those standard upgrades, came down to about $800 annually that it would cost us to operate our home. And we really, as I discussed, we're going to talk a little bit about a couple further improvements. We're kind of midway on this long-term journey for our house. And so, as we said, PV, but besides that, what we really want to talk about is the envelope. What are we going to do to improve the existing walls on a house? If we aren't going to renovate, how do we do that? And that's when we look at Sprung, a Dutch organization that really, I think, revolutionized how to think about improving existing houses. So let's go next. So a little bit about envelope improvements, envelope insulation improvements. If you're going to think about the outside of a home, or if you're going to think about the exterior walls of a home, most people have insulation within the walls. And if we're going to add on to it, the Sprung idea is to create a prefabricated insulated panel that you can bolt onto the outside. So you don't have to impact the inhabitants or the occupants and make them even leave the home. It's kind of a simple no-brainer. And what it does is it brings something that has been around for a long time, continuous insulation, and it brings it into the realm of being a process and something where you can say, oh, I want to put an addition on my house. Oh, I want to put an Sprung panel on my house. It just makes it so it's a process or a simple component. And when we sat down to think about how we were going to add on to the envelope of our house, the outside walls, the big thing here is that we needed to think about, hey, are we going to try to do this just for ourselves? Are we going to call in favors or, call up a local lumberyard and find out what sort of continue and try to do it on the cheap with kind of a cost versus savings mindset, but it's a very single-minded goal? Or are we going to try to do something with perhaps a little bit larger outreach? Do we just want to be efficient at our home, or do we maybe want to think about being efficient in other homes and making an idea, turning an idea into a process and turning a process into something that can be replicated for other people as well? And so that's really where the Sprung idea took off for us. I really thought that it would make sense, and I talked to my wife a lot about this after a seminar I went to last year, pre-pandemic, about how I think that if we do this, we should think of it in a way that can make it easy to scale, not just larger buildings, but easy to scale on an infrastructure perspective. And so talking about how to bring this to my neighborhood and my town and then my local region, and allowing it to not just be something that I'm the gatekeeper on, but something that is simple enough where people go, wow, why didn't we think about that before? Let's do that. So we had our example, we had our idea, our panels now were shaping up, where our insulation was shaping up. We now know what direction we're going to go in. So brings us to the next slide. So this is just a little bit about the process of what we've done. The idea of insulated, prefabricated exterior wall panels bolting onto an existing envelope, quickly bolting on after some basic treatments to the existing house makes a lot of sense. And so what we've done is we've developed a bit of a process, flying a drone to digitally map the outside of a structure. There's the drone flight in the upper left corner of the slides on my own house. Doing some hygrothermic engineering to make sure that we're not going to be changing the dew point within the wall and causing condensation and rotting. Finding products that we thought were that had integrity and that can do what we needed, not just for the short term, but for the long term. And then figuring out what the design of this panel was going to be and thinking about how it was going to interact with the existing project, with our existing home. It's kind of the cliche that a builder performs the upgrades onto his own house to show off what he can do. And yes, to a point, that's what that's what we needed to do. We wanted to have proof of concept, but beyond that, I'm interested in not having a large environmental impact, and I know my family is too. So we're coming at this really from the personal perspective of how can we make our home have less of an impact, and how can we do the right thing. So the right side of the screen are a number of the documents that we've designed. I think I have 9 different versions of the panel that I've run through. The pandemic is a horrible thing, but a lovely thing also when it comes to offering you or allowing you the time to sit down and be on your deck and draft and come up with options and figure out what your ideas are. Or in terms of the photographs that are here, to build a prototype, to build a prototype where pieces can be removed so you can show how things are actually working, because it's a different mindset than what's already been done. It just makes sense to think about this. It made sense to think about this for us differently than a lot of other projects and differently from a lot of other normal projects. And that gets into the integrated design process. We know that we needed to involve others. I don't know everything about this. I cannot accurately capture the outside of a house to build a prefabricated panel on. I am not a gifted enough architect to design or modify the outside of my home to please my wife. We needed certified passive house consultants with hygrothermic engineering and software that could actually determine that we weren't going to hurt our home. All of these components and all of these professionals played a hand in what we came up with, and all of them have validity in determining what was the best or the final outcome for this option. So I'm really proud of the process, but I know that every one of the people that worked with my wife and I did what they were able to contribute, because they understand that ultimately this is it's just a different idea. All of us have sat down and had the eureka moment of, why don't we do this? Why haven't we always been doing this? We can. It makes sense. Today with LiDAR or even some high efficiency photogrammetry, it makes it easier to map an existing house, but we could always develop as-built of the outside. And so looking at this, it just kind of makes some sense. I went a different way than the Energy Sprung template or inspiration that I started with. I decided to move forward with more typically available materials and easy to replicate processes. But I came out with ultimately some additions to our home that are roughly going to triple the R value of the exterior walls. I'm proud of this. I think it's going to help. I have a bedroom where my oldest son sleeps, and it has everything wrong going for it. It's on the northeast corner of the home. It's the furthest run away from the air handler. It has 3 exterior walls. It's where the electric meter is. So that way there's a segment of the outside sheathing that's cut away and there's no insulation in a portion. It's just a horrible, horrible, horrible original design aspect to the home. And I think I'm most excited for this product that it's going to improve his bedroom, that he's not going to be cold in winter when the rest of us are comfortable. So this is something that offers really a pathway towards net zero. This is not an immediate answer to net zero. You don't slap these on a house, do nothing else, and get to net zero. That's not the intent. The intent is to be able to offer a way to facilitate improvements to the R values of the outside walls that just were never easily achievable before. You don't have to move away for a month when someone rips off drywall and redoes insulation. You don't have to worry about having an impact on your family or particulate when you're living in half the house. This is something that happens from the outside, and it's structurally sound, and I think it's a pretty good product. And I am looking forward in the next few weeks to actually prefabricate these panels and install it on my own residence. So let's move to the next slide. So the last thing to talk about is going to be the kind of the financial benefits here. We talked a lot about the qualitative benefits on making my son's room more comfortable. We really want to talk about the financial side. I know that's what a lot of people are going to be interested in as well. So As I said, it was about $1,000 to operate my home when it was built. After some of the minor mechanical upgrades, that came down to about $900 annually. And then after weatherization and other incredibly important improvements that I recommend happening to your home or putting on your own home, is about $750 annually. With the NSIP, what I'm calling the panels that we design and are going to install. With the NSIP, it takes it about another $250, and it cuts the operating costs about in half from when a mid to late 90s custom home was built. So those operating costs come down pretty far, and with I think some somewhat conservative solar options, PV options, and a little bit of additional insulation for foundation wall, I think that we really have the chance to get to net zero on this house. I'm looking forward to that process completely. So the last thing that I really want to talk about is this really basic design adage of the 20-40-60 goal for net zero. This is not a roadmap. This is just one of those. It's a rule of thumb that we used to share in construction and architecture. If you are serious about net zero, you need to be serious about hitting these R value benchmarks. Our 20 for foundation insulation, our 40 for wall insulation, and our 60 for attic insulation. You can do it with less, and obviously solar or wind or other options for renewable power sources. But 20-40-60 is kind of a benchmark to hit. Our product, the NSIP, has the ability to bring an existing wall to an R40. It's not the product that I'm putting on our house. The cost is higher to do that. The insulation is a little bit more expensive. That would take it to get to that level. R60 is a pretty inexpensive upgrade to put for the attic weatherization programs. In fact, what was discussed for the People's Gas weatherization program is a great way to supplement getting your attic weatherized to bring it to at least R49, if not R60. Cost is pretty low to do that. So something we need to think about if we're going to be serious about upgrading the 125 million structures in this nation and trying to bring them down to net zero. This is a way to take a further step down that pathway for our existing housing infrastructure. I'm excited about it because it's my own house. I'm excited about it because I really like getting up in the morning and going to work. I work for myself, and this has made that transition from being a full-time employee who was laid off during the pandemic. This product has made that transition to starting my own company just beautiful. I can wake up and know that I'm trying to, like I said, improve my house, my neighborhood, and my region. And I believe in that, and I believe in sharing this technology and this mindset and this process and procedure that I've come up with. I think we all need to do it, and I do not think anyone should be a gatekeeper for how this can be accomplished. So let's move on to the next, and I think that's my last. It is. So I think I'm ending just a couple minutes early here, but it's a good thing. I'm sure everybody will appreciate getting to them a little bit sooner. So again, my name's Craig Schneider. I have been involved in sustainable design and construction for quite a long time. EBA, the Energy and Environmental Building Association, put on a seminar at a local home building association in 2004, and my world was turned upside down. Changed my life and showed me that sustainability and building science was just really, really the way that I wanted to devote my life, and I have. So thanks a lot. I really am looking forward to introducing Patty Lloyd of Leopardo Companies now. Hopefully she can take on and build on what it is that I've talked about a little bit and help teach us all how to do a better job at our own house. Thanks.
Thank you, Craig, and congratulations on your patent today. That is an amazing win, and honestly, I can't wait to see some after pictures after you're done. Innovation is great. We need lots of innovators if we're going to achieve the climate goals that we need to achieve. So welcome to the landings. Next slide, please. So this is our neighborhood where we live in the landings in Kane County. It's a really cool neighborhood. because of the airport. That's why it's called the Landing. So right down the street from me, we have a private airport that has nothing to do with sustainability. It's just really cool. And then we're bounded on 2 other sides by the Freeman Came Forest Preserve, which we can actually access through our subdivision without getting on a main road or getting in a car. So that's really fun. We can go out there and, run and bike and walk our dog. So there's waterfowl nesting there, glaciated cane, and then some old oak stands. So it's a really, really amazing amenity to have. Next slide, please. So this is our house when we bought it in 2006. I think this picture is from 2012. We clearly hadn't done much with it yet at that point. We probably had no money because we were young and having our kids. But we are the second owners of the single family home ranch. It was built in 1978. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. On the upstairs, we also have 2 bedrooms and a bath in the basement, forced air HVAC electric, or forced air heat electric AC. The basement's partially finished. It's 1,968 square feet, and we're on just over half of an acre. We're in an unincorporated part of the county, so that's really great. There's some really cool things about that, and also some not so cool things. One of the not so cool things is that we're on a community well that's privately held, and we have lots of water management problems through the years. And then, of course, we have a septic system. A strike against us from sustainability is we do live in a rural area, so we have to drive more to get places. But we're smart about how often we drive and where we go, and we try to, trip chain. Next slide, please. So this is our house now, new roof, all new windows and doors, side lights, new exterior paint. I think we added some more trees. So this is, this wasn't one project here or there. This was lots and lots and lots of projects over many years. Next slide, please. Trees are one of my favorite things about our property. I think we've got 37 trees on our property. When we bought this place, we were like, oh, we're getting a house, but what we're really getting is a yard. So I love this aerial view showing them and how much of our lot is covered with trees. Carbon sequestration. Next slide. So we're the Lloyds. We're a family of 5. When we moved here, our 21-year-old was 6, our 15-year-old was 6 months old, and our 13-year-old wasn't even thought of. So it's been really cool having our kids grow up in one house. And as home improvements go, I have to credit my husband, Brian, for just being so supportive. And he is really the brains. I come up with the idea, but he comes up with the brains about how we're going to execute these home projects. So my presentation isn't really about like a major retrofit we did, but it's more about green living and like our path to a green home. There was never one huge renovation, but rather consistent year over year as we could afford projects. And you'll see that some stuff wasn't sustainable because A, we didn't know what we were doing or we didn't have the money, but we've become more strategic as we've gone with our improvements, and we have a long list of things to go. So our focus up to this point has been energy efficiency before aesthetics, and many things we just don't care about from an aesthetic perspective. I'm not the one that's going to have that fancy, cute house with the nice finishes. But our energy efficiency is really good, and our carbon footprint is getting lower by the year. So let's go ahead to the next slide and talk about some of these improvements. Just a couple of shots of the house. Yes, I did clean for you guys. This is the beauty of having a virtual tour. You guys don't get to see the bad parts. So in this room, when we first moved in, we had to replace the big window there and the sliding glass door. They were wood framed, original to the house. Anybody that sat next to that window just froze to death. Nobody wanted to eat over there. So those got replaced right away. And then we did later the side lights and front doors. When we did our bedroom windows, they were so deteriorated and leaky. I always try to donate everything we take out of our house into the reuse stream, and they wouldn't even take them. They were so bad. So I love the oak cabinets in the kitchen that my husband refreshed a year or two ago. The quotes to do a refinish or anything were through the roof, but he found a nice sustainable way, and he had patience and did it over a summer. So my kids have beaten the heck out of the cabinets and the countertops. So that also, the countertops were replaced about 2 years ago. And they were before bright aqua Formica. So glad to see those go. Next, please. We've got some pretty awesome 70s finish in our house, as you can still see from 2 different colors of fake brick in one picture. I just love that. And then we have a lot of funky lighting fixtures that have inappropriate names. So some of this stuff will go eventually. Some of it, we like it because it's got some character. Next slide. So this is our family room. We've got some really ugly old ceramic tile in there. It's one of those sustainability moral dilemmas. And as you start doing things with your house, you're going to have these like, okay, it's really durable. It lasts for a long time, but it's also very unattractive and we hate it, but there's nowhere to recycle it, right? It's gonna go into the landfill. So, and there's actually quite a lot of this in the hallways. So this is one of those things we're just gonna sit on for a while, and who knows what we'll end up doing, but for now it stays. Okay, next slide. So now I'm gonna dig into some of the improvements we've made. And I just need to point out that what I'm fixing to talk about really speaks to what Amy was talking about with the People's Gas home assessment programs. We live in NICOR territory, but we basically use the NICOR equivalent programs. So it's a great example to back up what she was saying. So we had a home energy assessment in 2016 through the Energy Smart NICOR gas program. And heeding their recommendations in 2017, we did significant air sealing and insulation, attic insulating in our home. Our attic insulation was R13, and we bumped it up with cellulose insulation to R49. So that was a big improvement. We further insulated our crawl space with weather blanket cellulose insulation. We put spray foam insulation between the basement ceiling and the first floor and the foundation walls. These actions really resulted in significant energy savings for our home. And then that work was verified through a blower door test. You can see here the picture, which ironically, I did not know this. I have to say this, Craig. Craig was my contact with Intelligent Energy Solutions back then that I connected with, in the firm that he worked for did this work. So the blower door test basically validated that energy efficiency air sealing and insulation work was successful. And so because of that, we were able to receive incentives from NICOR. So I think the project totally cost about $3,136. And we received $600 in rebates. So $84 for wall insulation, $400 for attic insulation, and $200 for air sealing after the blower door test. So at the end of the day, you know, it was about $2,500 for some moves that made a significant energy savings on our house, and we're still saving energy because of that. Next slide, please. So we've put in a lot of, well, not a lot, we have a lot of really old carpet in our house, but this is some of the flooring that we've replaced. So obviously I work with the LEED rating system a lot, so I know a lot about healthy and sustainable materials. So it's really hard to ignore that knowledge when you're replacing those types of products in your own home. So the entire house inside has been painted with low VOC paint to reduce the emissions to the air that my family would breathe. Unfortunately, it looks like the entire house needs to be done again. That's what happens when you have 3 boys, but they're so hard on everything. But one of the first things we did when we moved in was install wood laminate flooring in the kitchen and dining room area, because that was carpeted, and I had babies, and nobody wants to feed a baby over carpet ever. So we took that out, and what we replaced wasn't sustainable. We didn't even know what sustainability was at that time, but the sustainable action that resulted from that is the carpet that was removed from those dining areas. And then later our living room were put in our basement. So they were repurposed. One carpet's one of our basement bedrooms, and then the other big piece is carpeting like the kids' den video game area. So great example of reuse. For the living room, family room carpets, we got CRI Green Label Plus certified carpet, so low emitting carpet. I knew that it was a success the day one of our family friends came over and he was like, "What? You got new carpet?" Like, I can never be in a house with new carpet because my allergies are so bad. He's like, "I didn't even notice." So that was really cool. And then the vinyl composition tile in our bathrooms is Floor Score certified, which is also a low emitting flooring. And we use the low emitting adhesives for everything as well. So these were good cosmetic improvements. Next slide, please. So in 2018, we replaced our furnace and air conditioner. Climate Control Services out of Elgin did that work. And we had a lot of energy efficiency wins with this. So the furnace was American standard. It was a 96% two-stage variable upflow furnace. It has a built-in smart thermostat. It's got MERV 13 filtration. And then the AC was an American standard 2.5 ton, 16 SEER unit. And I'm going to tell you, those salespeople fought with me about why I needed a 16 SEER unit. And eventually, I think they just decided I was a dummy and gave up. They're like, "You're going to spend so much more money." And I was like, "But I'm going to live here for a long time. And my priorities are also about reducing my energy usage." So we also, like I said, put in a smart thermostat to go with this system, which has actually been a great addition. You know, being able to go onto your phone and adjust your AC from away is awesome. And then we also received energy efficiency incentives for these as well. $50 for the ECM motor install. Nicor gave us $150 for the furnace. We got $400 for the SEER 16 unit install, $100 for the thermostat, $50 from Nicor for the thermostat. And then we got another $150 for just bundling it all together and doing a whole system. So, and then American Standard, the company we got it from, also gave us a $500 incentive. So I'm just really hitting these financial wins and incentives because I think it's important for people to understand that they're out there. I think a lot of people don't take advantage of these great programs that you're paying for on your utility bills through the energy efficiency line item. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, there's our front door. Let me see if I can get to my notes here. So we replaced our front door and our bedroom windows. We know a lot more now than we did then. So originally, the front of the house is all vinyl windows, and that was fine. We didn't know about the red list and chemicals of concern and so forth. But in the last year or two, our windows got really, really bad. And so we had to make some pretty drastic moves to improve them. So we improved all the bedroom windows with Marvin windows that I think they're low E. Let's see here. They're double hung, low E with argon gas. They're wood framed windows because we didn't want the emissions of vinyl in the bedrooms where our kids were sleeping. So like I said before, the windows we replaced were just horribly old and leaky. And an added bonus of the windows was that I couldn't hear my neighbor's really loud basset hound anymore. So the acoustic benefit was unanticipated and awesome. We also got a new front door. Blue Ribbon Millwork in Woodstock helped us with this stuff, but this is a ThermaTrue smooth Energy Star front door. It's for Energy Star for northern climates. It's got a U factor of 0.26 and a solar heat gain coefficient of 0.27, and then a Larson store door that's also very efficient. So the front door really was hard for us because a brand new door with side lights is quite expensive. And we really tried to find a reusable option. Our front door actually had a giant crack in it because our kids kicked it every time they came in the door to get it to open when it was swollen. And we couldn't find a door to reuse. So it took us a long time to make that right choice on the door and side lights. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some water. Water savings. We installed low flow toilets in all our upstairs bathrooms about 5 years ago. These are the dual flush American standard commodes. This is a picture of it. We also have shower heads and faucets, all low flow and WaterSense certified. Some of the operational things we do at our home is we have a rain barrel. We've had it for several years, outdoor watering of plants and gardening. And then I just finished a sustainable water use class. And in one of the posts, we had to talk about what we did to conserve water. And a couple weird things we do, which if you talk to anybody that lives green, they probably have a weird thing they do in their house that's green. But we collect the water from our basement dehumidifier and we flush the basement toilet with it. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I saw a note come by that the sound disappeared. So yeah, we flush our basement toilet with the dehumidifier water. It basically equals one free flush. And then we also collect like our kids' discarded water, glasses of water that they leave around the house, and there are many. And we water our plants with them. So those are just some of the little water things that we do at our house. And if we could go to the next slide. So I got to jam through these slides. Okay, so the biggest thing we did was this year, we got solar for 103% of our family's energy usage. GR&E Solar was our provider. They gave me this awesome slide and gave me all my talking points. So they're roof mounted, they face east at a 20-degree tilt. You might have seen that they're on the front of our house and not the back, which was kind of fun. The back had too many trees and I wasn't willing to cut any of them. We've got a Solar Edge energy hub. We do not have battery storage at this time. We didn't feel like the technology was developed enough or in our price range at this time. So that's going to be an ad later on, but it's been really fun with the solar panels. Now we think about things like, when are we using our electricity? We try to use it now during the day as much as possible to take advantage of that solar power and the reduced emissions that come from using that green power. So yeah, that's been a great journey. I would be remiss if I didn't say that there's a federal renewable tax credit. So I think it's like 24% we'll get this year. And then with the energy bill passing tomorrow, we'll likely be in line for SREX. And if that happens, and we got an inverter rebate. So if that happens, about half of our solar system will have been paid for by incentives and the federal tax credit. So definitely ways to look into that. Next slide. I got 2 minutes left. I'm going to jam through it. Thank you, Maggie, for that. So green living, you know, there's a lot that you can do in your house. We try to only put things in the water that are not going to be contaminants, especially since we have a septic system, but there's no way with water. It all comes back to the natural water sources at the end of the day. We also replaced all of our upstairs lighting with LED. You can see that we did not replace the fixtures, but rather we replaced the bulbs. So next slide. Composting, we have an indoor electric composter, and then it goes outdoor to the outdoor composter. We don't compost because we're gardeners. We compost because we want to reduce our food waste to the landfill, because it creates methane, which is a much more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So we do throw this stuff around our yard, but yeah, that's it. There's a lot of resources that go into water or into food. And so we try not to waste those. Next slide. Oh, can I have the next slide, please? These are just some stuff we've made. Huh?
Sorry, I think you were frozen.
These are some things I'm frozen?
You're back now. And
I stopped my video so I can get through this without being frozen. We reuse a lot of stuff and remake a lot of stuff. Our woodshed is our kids' old playground. This is our recycling center. A table we made from an old oak door. I think I've got 3 slides left. Next slide, please. The biggest risk to any green building program is the occupants. My occupants are a problem, 3 boys, 2 teenagers. So they pretty much ignore all my signs, but we do have signage around our house to remind them to use less water and to turn off the lights. Next slide, please. One of the great benefits of living somewhere unincorporated is that we can have a clothesline. So overall in the US, dryers emit about 32 million metric tons of carbon dioxide a year. And they use a lot of power, 43 billion kilowatt hours, or 443 million therms of natural gas. So whenever the weather allows here, we do use the line to dry our laundry. Next slide. Next steps, these are just some of them. There's a long list. Replacing things in the basement is the biggest one now that a couple kids live down there. Next slide, please. So global CPR, conservation, preservation, and restoration. We want to build societies based on conservation, not waste. Preserve what we can't replace and work with nature to help restore what we've degraded or restored. That's from David Brower. Thank you, and sorry I went a hair long.
No problem. Thank you so much, Patty. And next, finally, we will hear from Jason Lafleur about his home.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. I think you have to stop sharing. Okay, there we go. Great. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Jason. I'm a nerd. We are actually a family of nerds. In fact, we fly a flag on Star Wars Day, May the 4th. Hope it's with you. My wife is a photographer and graphic designer nerd, so she gets cool pictures of reflected sunsets in our sunroom, as you can see here. So this house is something we moved into about 5 years ago, and coming from actually a previous home that was on the home tour back in 2015. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to that. Actually, our old blog is still up there, oakparkbungalow.blogspot.com. A little bit of notoriety. We were in the Sold House magazine for using soy-based spray foam at the time, and even had the Today Show come out and help us with some of our renovation work. That was kind of fun. So also, I'm a founder. I started the company Hpwh, and I was involved with Craig and Mark and others on the formation of this Greenbelt home tour event. So I'm glad everyone is here today. So a little bit about our site. This is something we were not actually looking to move, but we drove past on an open house, and it was just kind of blew us away. Similar to what Patty said, like the yard, the trees and everything sold us. We got lucky. We have a nice view of the Fox River. Fortunately, we're not in a floodplain, but there is some drainage issues on the site that I'll get into. Lots of mature trees. I have to do a tree inventory now that Patty's told me she has 37. We have some very large mature trees, which does create some problems when you want to look at solar. For example, on the aerial photo from Google Maps, you can't even see the house. You see my neighbor's house next to us, but our house is pretty much obscured completely. So very, very large trees around create some problems. So when we first bought the house, right after signing the closing documents, there were 3 things that I wanted to do before we moved in. And the first one was build a wall. And this was done in the sunroom, which looked, as you see on the left here, when we purchased it. And I knew from my experiences as an energy nerd that there would be a lot of heat gain and heat loss in the wintertime from this. So the first thing we did was isolate this space from the rest of the home by using some reclaimed fixtures, a window, sliding door that was reclaimed, actually helped put in by Eric Barton, who's working on Tom Bastidilia's house that you heard about last week, maybe. Anyway, great improvement that immediately made a noticeable impact on comfort in this space. The room, because it's thermally isolated, I actually have a data logger out there, and you can see how the temperatures swing from time to time over the year, dropping below freezing, and interestingly, the highest peak was actually in April, late March, early April this year, where the trees hadn't fully leafed out yet, but we had a warm day outside and lots of heat gain from the sun there. I have a Mitsubishi cold climate heat pump that's serving that space that I installed as soon as I isolated it. However, it has had some refrigerant leakage issues, and that certainly is not good from a environmental perspective. The CO2 impact of refrigerant is way higher, at least this kind of refrigerant is way higher than almost anything else. So I didn't get it filled for a while, and it wasn't running during the time of that data collection, just in case you're wondering. But I have since corrected the issue. So second thing we did, but I didn't want to breathe other people's stuff. And the place was covered in carpet everywhere. Every single room, even a bathroom, was covered with carpet. And so one of the first things that really drove or restrained budget for anything else was doing all new floors everywhere. So new floors, and then we painted most of the rooms anyway as well, because the flooring was all coming out anyway. And for that, we used Ecos paints. If you haven't heard of these, they are non-toxic, zero VOC water-based paints that don't have any chemicals in them. So it's a special order product. You can't just go pick it up at the local big box store, but if you're concerned about air quality, it's something worth looking at. Third thing I did was have the ductwork cleaned and aerosealed. This is a non-invasive way to seal ducts to make sure that the air that's coming from your furnace or air conditioner gets to where you want it to get to, right in the rooms, not lost somewhere in some cavity in the home. So this was not super cheap. I think it was around $2,500 for both of them together. But it did seal up the ductwork and helps eliminate some of the temperature irregularities. And you can see from my data, I actually took airflow samples before and after this. And in some cases, the airflows doubled or tripled. And most significantly in the bedrooms, the furthest rooms from the furnace had much higher airflow. So therefore will be much more comfortable going forward. So also during the home inspection, because I'm a nerd, I carried an infrared camera around and we got some good photos of the leakage that was happening and really understood the fact this is very common in many construction from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, is that there's a lot of air leakage between that top level and the attic. And that's why a lot of the programs like Amy talked about and Craig used to do, et cetera, focus on sealing the lid, because you can see pictures of why right here. The plumbing wall behind the vanity, those three lights you see, pulling in lots of air. The exhaust fan and everything around it was completely poorly insulated, but more importantly, leaking lots of air through it. And so that was a big issue. Owens Corning has a great chart, and I saw a question about this earlier about why seal the band joist area. You can see that's this sort of can almost be a prioritization list of where you want to focus any efforts on air sealing and insulating. For us, the way I approached this was by insulating the underside of the roof deck with spray foam insulation and carry that down to the edge of the wall assembly. That creates a conditioned space in the attic, and not only sealed everything from, or not only insulated it, but also helped stop a lot of the air leakage within my house. A lot of people think that windows are the problem, but as you can see, that might be where you notice it the most, but where it's actually occurring is probably somewhere different. And after those top three items there, the next one is the band joist area, which we'll talk about on what I did here. So we did the same thing that I think Patty talked about. I just have photos of it sealed between the crawl space and the first floor on the left here. And then in the process of remodeling a room that we had to gut, I ended up kind of a very affordable, good insulating approach for this trouble spot is cutting foam board and then using great stuff around that to create a good seal in place at a relatively affordable cost. Sometimes tragedies happen, and again, lots of mature trees, old sewer lines. Those tree roots find a way to get into the sewer lines and suck up that water and block things from flowing down. So one day when my wife was doing laundry, the toilet, which was the lowest drain in the house, backed up, and that created we might as well remodel this 1970s bathroom anyway, because it was on our wish list. And now we had a reason to do so since half of it was stripped out for us. So we went from a toilet issue to a tiara issue. And when I say tiara, one of the things that was neat, we used from a good friend of mine who I know is on the line today, we used some reclaimed ice stone from another project and had that sliced up to cover any of the horizontal surfaces such as the threshold to the shower area there, the bench, towel area. This is actually a combined wet room. So it's both a shower and a tub area in one space, which is kind of cool, so that I don't have to worry about the kids making a mess when they're in the tub or something. And oh, funny story about the tub. It's actually the same exact tub we had bought and installed new in our prior home in Oak Park. I found another copy of it at a Habitat restore. And it's just a 6-foot soaking tub. So I actually kind of built the bathroom around that when we did the remodel. So that was kind of fun. Let's see. All right. So back to the building envelope. This is one of the important things you can do to really get towards that goal of a decarbonized net zero home is really focus on these efforts. And in our house, from a starting point of around 9 ACH 50, with our blower door testing, just some of the small improvements I've done to date have gotten us below 5 of, which is actually the code for new construction homes in Illinois. So our home is actually built better than something you might buy off the street, at least in terms of air tightness. Other elements might not be as good, but it's stepping down that level. And you can see, even with those improvements, the loads on my home are primarily driven in the heating season by infiltration, right? That's where that's where our energy cost dollars are going from when it comes to all the different components in the building and how they add up. So I thought that was worth sharing. I drive an EV. I don't know if you noticed, I have a Chevy Bolt on the front page. Prior to that, I had a Volt, which you can see pictured here, plugged into a microgrid down in Champaign. It's kind of a fun place to go if you're ever in at U of I. And when I was having a 240 volt system installed in my home, my electrician, I had him quote me on electrifying all the other end uses in my home, right? So looking at appliances, looking at the stove, the induction stove, for example, looking at a cold climate air source heat pump, looking at, and in order to do this, the hot water system as well. In order to do this in my home from it was currently a 100 amp panel, I'd have to upgrade my service size to accommodate all of these new loads, especially if some of them were simultaneous. There are some interesting devices you may have heard about on the last Greenbelt home tour session that might help alleviate some of that, but I don't know if I would be entirely comfortable if the home was fully electric, having one of those alternating devices and still only having a 100 amp panel. So I think no matter what, I would have to upgrade something, and just what it might cost to do that. So, and the reason a lot of people talk about electrification is the decarbonization angle, right? So, and one thing that's often lost, so I working off of an energy model of my home, looking at, okay, well, what would it be with a 96% furnace, good efficiency furnace versus a cold climate air source heat pump? And it's probably not too surprising if you're familiar with energy that the electric system will cost more because electricity is a more expensive fuel type than the natural gas right now. And there are all kinds of reasons for that. It's probably not entirely fair, but it is what it is right now. But the question for me was, what about the carbon dioxide impact, right? So at least from this modeling software, you can see that one's a little bit better than the other, but really this is somewhat of a non-exact, and there's a lot of variables here. So I would almost say that they're equivalent rather than saying that the furnace is better than the heat pump system on a CO2 basis. And this is based on the grid emissions from last year, right? So it's not entirely up to date and it's not forward looking yet. Well, there's a picture of the model. So, but what I think comes to mind for me was thinking about, well, what happens when the grid does get decarbonized in the future? So this looks like my PowerPoint might be crashing, Ashley, so I might need you to pull this up onto the screen for me, the PDF that I sent you.
Yeah, no problem. Let me pull that up.
And while we're doing that, I'll just sort of preface the slide a little bit. There's a great tool that the National Renewable Energy Lab has come out with called Cambium. And this tool actually lets people look at what the electrical grid will look like now and in the future, all the way out to 2050. And this is done looking at various scenarios in the grid. You could use like the standard case, business as usual, or you could do like, well, what if, gas was expensive? What if PV was cheap? What if, we started to do combined cycle capture cooling. So, in the
Can you see
house,
this? Can you see the screen, the slides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you go back one?
Yeah.
It's really not. It's really hard to see though. You know what? I got it back up. Let me share it back, if that's okay with you. So let me see here. Screen 2. Okay. And I'll just jump right back to where I was. Sorry for this, folks.
No problem. It's not a webinar without some technical difficulties.
Yeah, without technical issues. All right.
Yeah.
So, in my house, mature trees, really limiting the fact that I'm not going to have a good resource for on-site photovoltaics. And so my question for decarbonization would be, if I got rid of the gas furnace, put in a heat pump, would it essentially be a fossil fuel fired heat pump, right? And looking at our grid mix now, and even in the future, right? Which is the cool thing about this tool that I mentioned can do. It can look out in the future. And we have some great legislation that hopefully is being signed by the governor today or tomorrow. And that's going to help lower our baseload grid emissions. But a lot of the severe climate impacts actually happen at the margin. And one of the issues that I have with the CEJA bill that did pass or will pass is that you can actually import power from other states through the PJM grid. And so we could be importing power from Indiana, which certainly doesn't have, not going to have the regulations that we'll have in Illinois. But nothing's perfect in the world, right? So anyway, this was a good tool for me to look at. Well, what is the grid going to look like when the HVAC system dies? If I put in a new one, what's it going to be like in 15 years, right? Knowing that the use of fossil-based gas is somewhat steady throughout the year. And hopefully with Peoples and NICOR and others starting to look at decarbonizing their fuel source, lowering that line further down as they mix in biogas and hydrogen and other things like that. So, all right, so what do I have for my HVAC system now? So I have what's called a gas-fired heat pump. And this is a little bit of a prototype system. There are some other brands that are commercially available, not quite as high efficiency, but the one I have is 140% efficient. And this one device is doing all space heat for the home as well as all hot water for the home. I still have my air conditioning system, which you might be able to kind of see behind that, but it's nice because it keeps all the combustion outside. So you don't have any of those activities that can affect indoor air quality occurring within the house or within the building envelope, at least. And it also employs completely natural refrigerants. So a 0 GWP based refrigerant, ammonia in this case, versus a more conventional residential refrigerant, which is around a 4,000 or so GWP when looked at on a 20-year basis. So for me, that was an important thing. And a brief video here of the thing running. So you can kind of hear it sounds similar to an air conditioner, lower cost. And important for me was the CO2 impact of the system. So what else did I do in my house? So the other mechanical piece that's important to me is air quality, right? And so because I had that insulated attic, I was able to put in an ERV system. And this is a fresh air system, basically, an energy recovery ventilator that breathes out at the same time as it's pulling fresh air in, and those air streams cross, and you get energy transferred from one to the other. This was all done before the pandemic, thankfully. And because the attic was conditioned, I could run ducts up in that space very simply. And with a 6-inch round duct, just take some leads off of it and put the system right above the attic access hole. So it's easy for me to change the filters and clean them. Not too expensive. It costs around $1,500 in hard costs, and soft costs were free because it was my own labor crawling through the attic, not falling through the bedrooms. And the payback on this, it costs money. It costs more money to run. It costs money to buy it, right? But For me, the kids slept through the night finally, which was priceless in our family. It took her 4 years until this was installed to start doing that. So, and then when that bathroom issue happened and I redid it, I actually had the opportunity to bring down pipes from the attic and put a fresh supply into a bedroom on the lower level, as well as an exhaust that's coming from the little kitty litter area there. So we don't have to worry about any bad smells. I think I'm almost out of time. You can use landscaping to your advantage. If you can't have solar PV because of landscaping, why not use it to shade your windows like I'm doing with some hops that I'm growing? Yes, I do brew with them sometimes. Water management is a big issue. This is what it looks like when a rainstorm hits a sunroof area, and all that water goes and pools right at the base of it, right? So my project this spring was to install a rain garden area to help retain and have that water infiltrate into the ground naturally. There's some good resources for that locally. And finally, a little bit of a fun story. We had to redo the balcony. We never used this deck because it was falling off the house when we bought it. And for 5 years, we didn't touch it until the pandemic, and I had nothing better to do. So I took that old lumber and built a tree house out of it to make sure, trying to get my kids to go outside and enjoy the park a little bit more. So next steps for our house, definitely want to seal the crawl space. The floor is still dirt right now. That's number one. And then looking at a re-siding, right? We want to change the look of the house. Maybe something like this, and using a product maybe like what Craig talked about, the NSIPs. I'm really attracted to that. I'd also love to look at electrochromic smart windows that can dynamically adjust the glass on the sunroom. Stop that heat gain when we don't want it. So I think that's all I have. My contact info, if you want to learn more, I'm teaching a class actually in a couple weeks. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to you, Mark.
Hey, Jason, that was wonderful. Please stay on video, and I'd like to ask both Craig and Patty to also come back to video. Thank you to all three of you for opening your homes and your experiences and skill set to the audience today. This is a friendly reminder that the greenest homes are the ones that already exist. So please take care of our building stock. Love it. We have a number of questions. So one of them, I believe you answered, Patty, but there was a question on when you insulated the space between the joists and the basement. Can you give a speed round answer, please, Patty?
What was the question? When we insulated it?
When you insulated the space between the joists and the basement ceiling, so they ask, why did you insulate it?
Oh, why? So NICOR actually recommended that we do that when we had our home assessment, and the pictures that Jason showed was exactly the same thing. We did the same thing as he did in his home, but we basically followed all the recommendations they gave us.
And that includes the rim and the band, the outer perimeter, correct? Wonderful. Thank you, Patty.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, it does.
Right. Very important step. Craig, you also answered something in the chat here, and it said, can you address what are your panels made of, and how do you address the air barrier, particularly wall to roof?
Well, my panels that I'm putting on my own home are 2x4s framed around rock wool with a layer of continuous insulation inboard of the rock wool, and then structural sheathing, 4-ply plywood product on outboard of the rock wool insulation. So then how to address the air barrier at the top plate of a wall. If you were to think about a normal overhang of a house that extends past the outside wall about a foot or so, my panels will continue up into how I've designed them for my own home is they continue up into the overhang area above the soffit, 1.5 inches above the top plate, the double top plate of the outside wall. So that way there is a full thermal break, full insulation where normally there ends up being a double top plate where there's no insulation whatsoever, the top 3 inches of an outside wall. So it'll cover that. Then, as one of the things that I alluded to very quickly, and that I did not put in my response to Tom, was that I wholeheartedly support weatherization. And I don't think that the NSIP is going to be the only answer to moving towards energy efficiency. We need to weatherize, air seal, and insulate our attics. That process, coupled with the NSIP continuing up past the top plate and into the attic slightly, is the easiest way to seal that or provide an air barrier over that double top plate of the outside wall. This is incredibly technical and minutia that the average homeowner is not going to do. This is something for the subcontractors doing the work. Happy to discuss that process with anyone. I've been in attics sealing that joint before. I know how it's done. I know it's difficult, but I know it's necessary.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Craig. Jason, you're on the microphone here. And the question is, were you able to model the CO2 impact of transitioning to HPWH in a cold climate?
HPWH, so a heat pump water heater. I have modeled that, yes, and I did not look at the carbon emissions report of it though, so I can't tell you the impact on that. Judging that the space heating side was actually higher, I would expect a more minimal difference because the load for hot water is so much smaller than space heat in Illinois.
No, that's a perfect answer. And we're going to bounce it. Thank you, Jason. We're going to bounce it back to Craig. And the question is, how can you use energy sprung on the outside of a home with brick veneer exterior over the concrete masonry? And I believe you answered in the chat, but maybe a quick paraphrasing for those that didn't catch it.
I did not answer in chat. I think I said that I wanted to answer it in person. So there are ways that Energy Sprung currently is handling masonry exteriors now in a couple of their American pilot programs. Energy Sprung has got, I believe, the Bay Area is where they have a pilot, and in New York State they've got a pilot, and they're addressing masonry multifamily structures. So what they're doing there is they're removing segments of the masonry facade, actually running structural connecting members back to the structural members of the building, and then enclosing that masonry. Continuous in contact facade. They're creating something similar, if you know, I don't know if this term is going to be universally understood, but it's something similar to like a curtain wall in commercial buildings where your facade is separate from your structure of the building. But in this case, that facade is insulated, air sealed enclosures. So it's very possible. It is being done. It can be done with the NSIP. It's not a process that I'm looking at developing right now because I'm working on my pilot program, my first house. So happy to discuss more.
No, that's a great answer. It depends on what the finished cladding ends up being and how you approach it, and your details in that area are spot on.
Good
So
building science question though. That's great.
right. Well, we like to attract more and more of those. So for each of you, since you've done this professionally for many years, and since you've done it for so many clients, and today we're talking about the representation of what have you done in your own buildings and what you will continue to strive to do. Maybe let's start with Jason on this one. If you can offer some advice to some other homeowners that are trying to embark on their path to zero, what could be some first steps for them?
Well, if we're talking zero in terms of, then you definitely need to start with understanding the airflows in your house, I think is probably the first thing. So, the photo Patty had of a blower door test, if you haven't had that done, it can be very insightful. Hopefully someone that's doing that also has an infrared camera, because that's how you get the cool photos that I got that show you more extensively where the issues are. That is the number one energy issue in the home. But again, with the airflows, the other side of that is the indoor air quality side of it, right? The ventilation piece. As you build it tight, you got to ventilate it right. Mark's heard me say this for decades now at this point. And it's just so true. And it's not, there's nothing like, I can tell you, having put in an ERV in my home, there's nothing like laying in bed and feeling that fresh air come on your face. It's like having a controlled window opening at all times of the year without it being too cold or too hot. It's you know, some things are beyond net zero and just healthy and comfortable.
Great. So we have IAQ and we have ACH, right? Meet the buildings where they are, according to Jason. Craig, I'm going to ask you to relay the same context to folks. What are some things they could do on their path to zero? And then we'll move to Patty.
So Jason is bringing up a really great option. And I think one thing to just hit again is that this is integrated. You can't just do one thing without it being an entire building approach. So what I really recommend, and it comes from being in this position for years, I recommend working with people who are out there to help you. Insulation contractors that are BPI certified. It's a third-party organization that offers educational, training, certification. Working with those people to help outline a plan is super cheap. This is not something that's a $5,000 process. It might be a few $100 process. To have a really good energy audit done might be $1,000. Yes, you're spending money and you're not actually correcting something, but what you're doing is getting the education on how to effectively correct something. So whether that's going to be what Patty did with foam insulating the rim and band joists of her house, or what I did with weatherizing my attic, or what Jason did with sealing up and going with a conditioned attic space using the foam. I don't think any of us would have done that without having the proper education, the proper inexpensive education to guide us to that being a smart usage of our resources, and resources being time, money, and effort completely.
Thank you, Craig. And now, Patty, you're going to be the last for a question today, and then we're going to hand it over to Ashley. We've seen your work through your incredible team at Leopardo over the years. By the way, shout out, congratulations on a LEED fellow. And we can't step over that. It warms my heart to say that live. And
my face is warm now.
Yeah. And onwards, outside of IGA and Leopardo, we ventured into your home and in your home with your husband and your 3 boys, and the examples that you lead from letting the air take care of your laundry and making it fresh. Net zero. Give us some pointers, and then please hand it over to Ashley. And I thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm not going to tell anybody how to go to net zero, as I have not done so yet myself, but we're certainly edging closer, every day with all our improvements. But the biggest advice I would give to anyone, because I'm out of my league here with these 2 guys. I mean, these guys like engineers and building scientists, and I'm not that. So I do rely on the professionals to tell me what to do. And those energy assessments, which again, you guys are paying for this every month on your utility bills, will be very informative and instructive, and they'll help you prioritize what are the low-hanging fruits, what should I do first. And then, when we made our home list of improvements, which is quite long, we're prioritizing those by energy use impact. So which ones are going to have the most energy use impact first? And those are the ones we're going after. And then maybe someday I'll get rid of my 40-year-old bedroom carpet, but for now, that's not the priority. Ashley?
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Mark, Craig, Patty, and Jason for all being on today. And like Mark said, for sharing your home with us and allowing us to look at it via photos. We really appreciate it, and being able to continue to do this despite the pandemic and not being able to go into everyone's homes. So we really appreciate it. And like I said, this was a new thing that we did this year, having homeowners talk about projects they've taken on. One of the main questions I always get is where can you even start? So that was really awesome and super valuable information, and all of your presentations were so valuable. So we appreciate your time. For everyone on the call today, I will be sending out the follow-up email with the recording of this presentation, as well as the slides and contact information of our speakers. So you guys can all take a look and watch it again and reach out if you guys have specific questions, anything like that. And thank you to all the attendees for joining us through this journey of the Greenbelt Home series and sticking with us through going virtual. I know it was a different experience, but I think it's really valuable to be able to have the recordings and be able to rewatch and things like that. And hopefully one day we can also have some in-person tours. So thank you everyone for joining us throughout the home tour. We really appreciate it. Check out the Greenbelt Home Tour website for more resources and information. And keep an eye out for the follow-up email in the next week or so. And thank you again to all of our presenters, and everyone have a great evening. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you. It's been fun.
Thanks so much.